Hey everyone! Just a quick reminder that I will actually be doing a special birthday live stream on April 23 from 7 to 9 p.m. Toronto time, where I'll be discussing Hainai, Dominus, and taking suggestions for future episodes. If you drop in at twitch.tv/HainaiPod, you can give your own suggestions and maybe have it feature in a future episode. I'm super excited to spend time with you all, especially with how many new people have found Hainai this year. I'm really grateful that you all give me the opportunity to make something I love so much every single day. So I hope to see you all at my little live stream birthday party. Bring your best Hainai ideas, and as always, maraming salamat. Thank you so much. We'd like to give a special shout out to the following people for making this episode and the rest of Act 3 possible: Louis, Malaya, Reg, Daniel Athern, Osterkim, Vanna, Finch, Dr. Dan Venning, Sleepless Berry, Court, Rogue Canoe, John and Muna, Sadie, Zay the Great, Elliot Kane, and Trident. Thank you for your support. Maraming salamat. You're listening to Hainai by Motsi Dapu. Episode 82. Tao. Richard Henry was the only man left in his life that made the Benefactor feel human. His certainty, his thoughtful care, his gentle touch, it grounded him in the chaos of his life, knowing that someone cared for him so much that he would never be alone, even after everything and everyone he'd lost. Richard Henry was a tether that kept him tied to earth, though it was the same tether that the man slipped round his neck when he wasn't looking. Or when Richard Henry thought he wasn't looking. The thing is, Richard Henry saw him at his worst. Saw him as a poor, helpless, lost boy with so much wasted potential. He didn't see him as this frightening, unknowable thing like the other elders did after Hyde. Richard Henry saw his humanity. Richard Henry knew him best. And yet, somehow, that was what led Richard Henry to underestimate him. There was a lesson in that, somewhere. When the Benefactor found out about Thompson, found the spells in his basement, when he told Richard Henry of his plans to hide his true name and his face from the world, he wondered why Richard Henry didn't protest. He did bring up the problems that might arise, as the one who managed record-keeping, finances and all that, but he didn't seem too opposed to the idea that the Benefactor should protect himself When he found out about Richard Henry's plans to betray him, he wondered why the man seemed unfazed by the idea that he would lose such a weapon against him. Perhaps because the places of power his right hand refurbished from Savard's old schemes already bore his true name. Perhaps because Richard Henry was confident in his ability to be 10 steps ahead at all times. Perhaps because he actually wanted the Benefactor to protect himself. But that didn't make any sense unless he gave him so many chances. If he truly loved him, why didn't he take them? It was strange to lose someone without losing them. To catch Richard Henry's soul, make him exactly as he was, sans the memory of his betrayal. He was so good at it now. Memory spells. He never would have been able to keep Richard Henry's mind so whole, if not for his extensive research. The research he did for young Will. It was the reason he was able to make everyone forget his name and face. The reason he was able to stitch Richard Henry back together without seams. It was strange how life worked sometimes. That a spell he created and refined as a side project became the most consequential piece of magic he'd ever learned. A spell that held the lion's share of his magic, upholding it for so long. He had so much magic to spare, still, despite all that. Enough to keep his place of power. Enough to deter the elders that questioned him. And yet, it wasn't enough for what he wanted to do for the world. The irony was not lost on him, that he should need the power he destroyed other elders for seeking. But he would never stoop to their level. He would never hurt the innocent like they did. Like Elman. Like Argon. Like the monstrous Thompson. He was not like them. He would never be like them. Rage kept him going, now that love could not. Even if Richard Henry still loved him the same, still believing that he was whole, still believing that the Benefactor was as naive as the young man he'd been all those long years ago, desperately holding on to Richard Henry when he'd lost everyone he truly loved. Even with the betrayal, the Benefactor could not deny that Richard Henry had saved his life long enough for him to save others. Even if he wasn't strong enough to stop every death from every focus and every elder cheating the system. For as powerful as he was not omniscient. Though, that was something he could deal with careful planning and certain spells he had on hand. It was comfortingly consistent over the many years he'd been alive, how much people left recorded. One of the many things Richard Henry underestimated about him was how good a spy he truly was. One had to be terribly aware in his line of work. Even if he could not predict where foci activated, it was important that he had eyes and ears everywhere to know when they did. He was often too late. Except that one night. The night he rescued the Donner boy. Mikey, carried him out of the fire, held him in his arms, and felt the heavy weight on his heart lift, doing something so uncomplicatedly good for another person. A child, one that he was able to save. When he saw who came to his hospital room after the fire, the benefactor could only laugh at the serendipity of it all. Dooley, Jay's friend, his partner, the man he'd buried Clifford Bolden's body with, who didn't notice when he snuck Bolden's soul-bound focus into the coffin, intending to punish the man for his transgressions, rather than set his soul free. Fate seemed to mark this boy, and the benefactor, though he could not watch him grow, ensured his safety as best as he could. An endeavor made more difficult when he began to investigate elder magic, the foci, and the deaths that came with them. Still, he couldn't help but feel proud that the boy he saved grew up to be a man who had such a strong sense of justice. He felt pride. He felt tenderness. He felt optimism, like his efforts were finally worth something. After Donner, it was no longer simple rage that kept him going, and love returned without fanfare, with the strange fate he shared with the Donner boy. He didn't quite realize just how fate-touched Donner was until he first saw Maidatuin, someone who had the power he needed to achieve his goals, someone who had the magic to stand up to elders, someone who, like him, felt love and rage in equal measure, pushing them to act for others. someone he thought he could reach out to, when he could prove he was not a threat. Perhaps he'd spent too long without human companionship, because he didn't intend to offend her so deeply when he brought Abe back. The first time he brought him back, it was penance. Shame and guilt pushed him to do for Abe what he did for Richard Henry, when he was just a little too late to save him. Though the resurrected Abe did prove useful for the Benefactor's aims. He learned many things from what Abe saw and heard and recorded, because even without his influence, Abe had an insatiable curiosity for the occult and the uncanny ability to get into places he wasn't supposed to be in. Meeting Mary the way he did? Well, fate seemed to twist itself around them now, tethering them to the Benefactor's own, even if they did not see his hand. The second time he brought him back, he hoped to show Mary he meant well, and knew that Abe himself wanted nothing more than to be by her side again. Her disgust, her horror, it struck him to the core, made him question himself for the first time since Richard Henry's betrayal. It struck him then that he'd quite forgotten what it felt like to be human. He wondered if he could ask someone to teach him again. Of course, after what he did, Mary was out of the question. The last time he had someone that wasn't connected to the Ordo, well, he ruined that too, in the end. Even if he meant as much to protect Jay as to scare him away. Truth was, if he hadn't intervened, Jay would have been dead at Richard Henry's hands. And if he'd remained in Toronto, sooner or later, someone else would have found him. Someone else would have killed him. He did Jay a kindness, even if he didn't know it back then. Still, he ruined what they had. The friendship, though Jay did not know exactly who he was behind young Peter's face. He botched his first real meeting with Mary as well. While she seemed willing to believe in his goodwill, she was too diametrically opposed to his long-incubated plans for them to have a real, human conversation. She seemed convinced that she could sway him to her side, and he, in turn, felt that he could sway her to his. She didn't think he was a monster, and yet she was against him, nonetheless. So he could not have her as an ally, as much as he yearned to. Someone who knew so much of his world, someone who was not an elder, who did not have their greed and their hungry ambition. She reminded him of Marianne. She didn't evoke the same desperate love, but she did evoke the grief he felt at losing her, and the shame he felt disappointing her. He was so alone now, without Richard Henry. Even after the betrayal, his presence was still a comfort, a balm that meant he was never truly alone. But when Mary stole him away, he didn't resent her for it. He just resented how much he needed that man, despite everything, and how desperately alone he felt when he was finally totally gone, and the Benefactor was forced to deal with the rising tide of enraged, terrified elders wanting to retaliate. He could try to protect her, of course, stop all this before it came to a head, but, well, she was so powerful, more powerful than even he had anticipated. Could she not protect herself? What would it look like if she did? If an elder confronted her head on? It could be like an experiment. Just like when he convinced elders to put part of their souls in foci. Just like when Richard Henry frightened Clifford Bolden into crossing the line, and the Benefactor assisted in his punishment in the guise of innocent photographer Peter. He wanted to see what would happen if one of the elders tried to attack the most powerful natural user he'd seen since Laurie. He would interfere, of course, if Mary was in over her head, but he doubted that she would be. He wanted to see just how much power she actually had. Because if she proved strong enough, perhaps she could sway him to her way of thinking. If she provided an alternative to his plans. Would that be so terrible? To stand by someone's side once again? After all these decades? Did he have to sacrifice his principles, his goals, his judgment to make that happen? Or could he not find someone who looked at him kindly and understood what he meant to do without judging him for it? Could he not have someone stand by his side, believe in what he stood for without betraying him for it? Someone like Anak, huwag kang magpagabi. Di mo alam kung sinong masasalubong mo sa dilim. Child, don't stay out at night. You don't know who you'll meet in the dark. Malala ka talaga, alam mo yan. Di ka ba marunong mag-alaga ng sarili? You're too much, you know that? Don't you know how to take care of yourself? May kapangyarihan naman ako, di ba? Ba't mo ako binabatikos? Ako lang may kapangyarihang gawin to. I have power, don't I? Why are you harassing me? I'm the only one with the power to do this. Hello? Who are you?
You're listening to Hi Nai by Motsi Dapul.
Hey everyone, it's Motsi, creator and showrunner of the Hi Nai podcast. Hi Nai is a podcast produced by Motsi Dapul, Yoey Halago, and Alyssa Jimenez, and licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. This episode was co-produced by Jessie Goodsell, and written and directed by Motsi Dapul. If you'd like to chat with other listeners when this episode goes live, we do a live premiere every Sunday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/HiNaiPod. To help support the production of Hi Nai, you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/HiNaiPod. You'll get to be part of our early access program, where we release episodes 3 days early on Thursday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time. You can also get bonus video, audio, art, and much more. Speaking of Patreon, we'd love to give a special shout out to the following patrons for all their amazing support: Petra, Emily Cole, Maha, Nikki Green, Cy B.A., Emily C., Lauren Morton, Prinks Variety, Dee Chenak, Chandra, Tony Baloney, Nay, Boyo, Phoenix Luna, Kate Jordan, Tiana Harvey, Sabine, Ben, DC Squirrel, Jess No, Nonette Dapu, Mika, Anna, Sooks, Becca Terrier, Melissa, Flying Cabbage, Faye Fungi, Pablo Neurotic, Oster Kim, Megan, Jessie Goodsell, Malaya Light, and Victoria Goodwin. Thank you for all your support. If you subscribe at the ATET tier or the $10 tier and above, you get bonus episodes, bonus content, the full B-sides, and you get your name shouted out on every episode in the credits, just like our wonderful supporters here. If you can't subscribe monthly, you have the option to buy us a milk tea on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/HiNaiPod. Our ad-free Hi Nai album, which has our official music and full episodes from Act 1 and 2, is also available for both patrons and to purchase on our coffee shop. Check out our website, HiNaiPod.com, for more info, and follow us on all our socials, on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky, and even our YouTube posts, at HiNaiPod, for updates and more information, especially when we have special events. And as always, thank you, we love you, and hanggang sa muli.